question goes to Adetola. So, the question I want to ask you is, you have a strong analytics background, yes?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Can you give us an instance? Can you share a little bit of your analytics background with us so we can understand a little bit of it?
Oh, okay. So I used to be in operations for a bit, and then I delved into data analytics for a period of 4 years actually. So my role was just to review the customer data and then process and analyze it and just give the management so that they could make informed decisions concerning the particular sector that I was working in. So yeah.
Okay, that's certainly interesting. Can you share an instance where your data analytics background or data has clearly changed the direction of the product you were building?
Okay. Thank you, Maimunat. So I'll just repeat the question so that I'm sure I got it. You want me to share an experience where the use of data changed the course of my direction in product management? Is that?
Yes, with a particular product you were building.
Oh, okay. I mean, all the time. Very good question. All the time, really, and that's why data is actually very essential. Data is very quantitative and it's actually very direct. I personally love the use of data. But I'll give an example, right? So my team and I were currently working on a project that had to do with customer address verification. And so before we got the data from the right team, we felt we had the head knowledge, and based on experience and common sense, we knew where the problem would be. We were meant to make an improvement on a customer address verification product we had designed. So we thought we already knew what the problem was. Let's just start something preliminary before the data comes in. So we had started talking, brainstorming even, and we're just waiting. And then luckily for us, right, maybe 2 hours after the data comes in, and it was a shock because what we had thought was we were nowhere near the problem. In fact, we had thought, just a little fixes, maybe because the application was a bit slow, but that had nothing to do with what the data was telling us, because it was a VOC report. The data was telling us that customers were actually having a problem with one of the features of that product, and it was a significant count, and so we had to look. We now had to course correct, because thank God we had only spent 2 hours. But imagine what 2 hours means. You wasted 2 hours of your time, of your brain knowledge, So we had to course correct and follow the data. So in following the data, we also had to validate, because we're like really sure, that this had to be the problem. So when we actually validated it, we saw that the report was actually correct, and so we had to begin investigation, and we realized that a lot of things our customers needed, and resolved it. And yeah, that was how we were able to get it resolved. So with the right data, we were able to channel our resources, because if we had gone without, just imagine if we didn't have that data, we would have been focusing on a problem that was not even existing, right? But with the right data, we were able to hear our customer, listen to them, investigate the issue, and then resolve, and our customers were happy, and even us were happy, and the business was happy as well. So yeah.
Okay, that is certainly insightful. Yes. So data was able to save the day in that particular situation. So let's move on to
Absolutely.
exactly. So let's move on to Mary and hear what Mary has to say. Mary is the sort of person who believes in user experience and empathy. So Mary, what do you like? The question I have for you is, can you share a moment when trusting your gut led to a breakthrough product decision? Led to you having a breakthrough when you're making a product decision.
For me, I had a background. Sorry, I couldn't really introduce myself at earlier points. I had a background in customer facing. Actually, if I switched primarily into products, right? And for us, right, I was basically into retention. So, So for us, it's essential that you concentrate on the user first. The user has to be interested in whatever you're doing. So for we needed to understand what the issue was. We had our data. We had the data that tells us, oh, okay. For me, I had health insurance was a product that I was working on at that time, and that background in trying to reinvent our products. That time we needed to understand the issues with the users. We had the data telling us, oh, this is how this thing is being used. This is how this particular product is being used and things like that. But while we are trying to solve those issues, we also observe that we listen to the users. They were having issues like, oh, we needed to go to our competitor. We needed to go to your competitor to get the best of the care they really needed. But when we listened to the users, the more we understood that there were some underlying issues. We were giving them what they needed, but they just don't have the full grasp of what is on their particular product, what's on the product. So we observed that it wasn't really an issue of our product wasn't good. It was the issue of they actually do not understand what insurance is all about, what the health maintenance organization actually do. So often again, over and over again, we had to reorientate them. And that particular approach actually helped me also when I pivoted into products. I mean software product, actually, digital products, whereby I was working on an insurtech product, not sure actually, and I had to tell them, okay, why not let us bring in the learning, let us reorientate our users, let them understand what it really means. This way, they aren't necessarily saying, we want to go to your competitor, they have full understanding of this is what insurance is, and what you are giving me actually is actually what is needed. So what they are going to get from our competitor is no longer, oh, we aren't serving them well. It's about, oh, I really understand what you are doing right now, and I know that what you are giving to me is actually right. So for me, I would say again that for how to leverage user empathy is actually listening behind what are not being said. Some things they don't even know what they really want. But when you listen more to the unsaid things, you begin to understand that there's some things beyond the data. There are some reasons, there's some information, there's some data actually lying in their emotions that you need to pay attention to. I think that has really helped me in my product journey so far.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, that is pretty insightful. Listening to our customers or listening to the users or the end users is always helpful. So yes. So let's move on to the third panelist, Kemi, and she's the balance product leader. She maintains a balance between the gods and then the data. She uses both of them to make her decisions. So Kemi, as someone who balances both data and instinct, how do you decide which to prioritize in high-stakes decisions?
So typically, I would start with the data because it gives that kind of objective foundation to frame what the problem is and understand what the implications are. But the thing is that you wouldn't stop there, right? You always have to layer it with, in most cases, you layer it with instinct, especially when you have incomplete data or, the data is noisy or you're lagging behind, on emerging trends. So you ask yourself, what does the data actually say? What's missing here? And that's where, experience and pattern recognition, they come in, because you have to understand the team dynamics, you have to understand market signals, and you also have to understand user behavior in ways that numbers, can measure or numbers can capture. So typically, you have to look at the context, right? If the stakes are high and irreversible, let's say you are involving regulatory or legal risk, you have to lean highly on data. But if you're just innovating and you're exploring like new territory or you're moving fast, you have to allow more space, like for instincts, to guide yourself and your team in that aspect.
Yes, I understand, Kemi. There's certainly a need for balance. Let's go back to Adetola. We'd love to hear from you again. Hence, the question I have for you right now is, how do you ensure that your team is not just collecting data for data's sake? I mean, you believe in data a lot. You have told us that data can save the day. Data is very important. So how do you ensure that your team is not just collecting data for data's sake, but actually using it to drive meaningful product decisions?
That's a really good question. So in answering that, I'll just
I believe everybody on this call can cook at least something, right? So I'll just use the example of cooking. It's just like me saying I want to make, let me say, vegetable soup now, and I just go to the market, and then like everything I see there, I just grab, right? I can see a few people are smiling. Some of the ladies are smiling because they know that it's not practical, and I'm sure even the men on this call can attest to it. I mean, I want to make vegetable soup, the normal eforiro. I don't need melon seeds. I don't need, banga. I don't need all that. I want to make vegetable and specific. So I use that example to say this, right? You have to understand what your goal is. So driving it on to, creating a product. What is the envisioned goal? What is the objective, right? That will now determine the data that we will gather. So what do we want out of this thing, right? So we determine the kind of information, because at the end of the day, data is like is information, really meaningful information. That means data that we'll get, right, to get to that goal. So I said, first of all, understand your objective, the product goal and objectives, right? And then secondly, outline the KPIs. So the key performance indicators, for example, how do we know that when we get to this particular place, how are we going to know when we're on track, right? So determine that with your team, and then regularly review that data. This data that we have, right, towards the goal that we're trying to achieve. Are we delivering on it? Is it still valid? Do you understand? Is it still current? Is it still okay is it still going to be able to take us to the envisioned goal? Because we're starting, remember, we started from the goal itself, right? So everything that we need to do has to tie into that goal. So you can't just get data. Data is, I don't even think it's practically possible to get data for itself. Like, data is infinite, right? So having that product goal, that objective that you want to get in mind first will determine the data you get, and it also help you streamline your efforts to achieve that goal. So yeah, so my team, we know that already before we embark on any journey. What is it we want to achieve? What is it we want to achieve? And then we tie our efforts to that goal. Is it to enhancing customer experience? Is it to increasing product visibility? Is it to whatever it is, has to tie into the end goal? And that's it. Thank you.
I heard what Adetola said. Knowing exactly what you're working on will help you decide what sort of data you want to gather, and that is again pretty interesting, pretty insightful. So we're going back to Mary. Mary, what advice would you give to a product manager or to product managers who are afraid to trust their instincts? Because let me tell you, I am one of those product managers that is afraid to trust our instincts. I believe in data too, just like Adetola. So what advice would you give to product managers who are afraid to trust their instincts, especially in data heavy environment?
I want to say it's actually, I feel like it's instincts that actually led some unicorns right now. I believe so. It started with particular gods, like, let me follow this particular thing. And for iPhone to have created a brand like that, it started with something like, oh, I believe something can work out, and then they kept on reinventing it. So I don't believe we can really zero out instincts in product development. I believe sometimes you just have to trust yourself so much that this particular idea can work. And now for a data heavy environment, and also nowadays, not even nowadays, in companies now, you have stakeholders. So you really do not have your own final say on the particular decision making, and you necessarily need to convince them to buy into your idea. I think one thing you will need to do is, while you are trusting your guts, you also need to be humble enough to admit that yes, there's a data for it, right? And then make sure you are able to provide particular solution whereby they can just try it out. Maybe something like A/B testing. you could have them do a particular thing, and then your own idea that you really want to also try out. It can be like you just have two things to try out to push to the users and observe the usage. Um, First thing is you are humble enough to admit that this is just a course, right? It can fail. However, you also need to experiment. You also need to know if this would work. And I feel that's one of the reasons, I think for LinkedIn, right? There's a point whereby they needed to know it's possible you I am active on LinkedIn, right? I need job, especially when I was going to pivot to product management. I needed jobs, but I never wanted to look as though I needed jobs, right? And for them, I believe they know that there will be some perfect people that are really interested in getting a job, but they wouldn't want to use that open for work banner on their profile. So at some point, they have to create a particular thing that's a button. So they needed to test something out. When you click on it, anybody who clicks on, even though it's not active, how many people clicked on this particular button? That button may help them to decide if people really needed that feature in it, like that. So I'm not saying we shouldn't. Okay, for me, I would say while you have some ideas, they may be crude in that sense, but you need to also experiment it out. And for you to also convince your stakeholders, you also need to be humble and then explain to them, give them reasons why they should also try it out, and then give them reasons that it will really necessarily don't, it won't be expensive to try out. And that particular way, your gut feeling is out there, and then you're able to validate quickly if it will work or not. I believe that's the way I do my own thing, actually.
Certainly, yes. Again, that's very insightful. Validating your gut feeling can make all the difference between just going with what you think and what you feel, and actually, transforming it or translating it into something that actually works and benefits your product. The next person we're going to is Kemi. Kemi, you actually inspired me, to be very honest. Being able to balance both your gut instinct and data is, like I said, very, very awesome. So like the question I have for you is, what are some red flags that tell you it's time to move beyond the numbers and listen to your intuition?
Red flags. If we start, we might not finish today. But I'll just mention like a few of them. I would say, for instance, when speed is critical, for instance, and you're waiting for perfect data, it could cost you the opportunity. Like if you're trying to wait for the perfect data to come and you need to deliver on the project, for how long do you wait for the data? So that's one thing. I would say when you're exploring something, let's say radically new, and the data simply hasn't caught up yet, or it doesn't even exist, because there are things that maybe they haven't caught up with the markets. For instance, that maybe some years back, some things have not caught up to the market. And how long do you really wait for that before you start building? If not, you keep doing discovery every week and every month, and you will never get to build. So that's another thing. When the metrics look great, but the user feedback is like telling a different story, that's like a misalignment, and that's a warning sign you have to look out for as well. Another thing is team. Your team is important. So your team morale, the energy from your team, or maybe when the product vision starts to feel off, those signals you don't see those signals on like a dashboard, because that's on it, like that's like the human perspective to it. So you're not seeing those signals, but you can feel it in the conversations. You're seeing that the tone you're getting from your team is totally off. The body language is not, as Gen Z would say, is not giving. So those are things that you're looking out for, and you're like, something is definitely wrong here. So those moments, you take a step back and trust your instincts, and then because you have to look at the bigger picture at the end of the day. So you take a step back, and for you to do that, you have to trust your instincts to do that. So and then you now realign. You understand? So that's it for me.
Yeah, so you need to listen to what everything is telling you, the data. You also need to make sure that the data works with what is practical, what is in real life, and you have to make sure that what you're seeing in real life works with the data. It's like I said, that's why you are, that's why you inspire me. It seems like a lot of work. So let's go back to Adetola. So Adetola, the question I have for you next is really very important, and it's something that like I said, I like data, so I've thought about a couple of times. What are the risks of relying too heavily on data and product development? Have you seen data ever mislead a team? Have you ever been misled, or have you seen a team that has been misled by data before?
Okay, so I think I'll just take some of what Kemi had said earlier on. So as much as I'm a really big proponent of using data, obviously it has its own shortcomings as well. So I think one of it is that it doesn't give you like a full picture. Okay. And I'll explain why. So yes, you have the numbers there, right? But then I'll give an example. For example, if you're looking at the numbers of maybe the performance of a feature on one of the products that we're developing, and the number is really high, it's saying it's giving a high number, but the customer experience is not attached to in that data. That data can be misleading, because yes, the numbers are high, but it might shield us from the reality from our customers' perspective, to say yes, even though they are doing it, their user experience is not so great, right? So that's one aspect where one of the shortcomings of data doesn't give you a full picture of a full picture. Another shortcoming I can see is misinterpretation. Data is open to misinterpretation, and for that one, it's based on the knowledge of the person analyzing that data, right? And the context of which that data is even being analyzed in the first place. So for example, I'll give an example. Maybe we're reviewing, for example, right, you can see 3/11/2024, 11/3/2024. Those are two dates, but they are different dates. Now, if you're not careful, that can be interpreted wrongly and give a totally different perspective. One speaks to the 11th day in the month of March 2024, while one speaks to the 3rd day in the month of November 2024. Now imagine we just take and say it's the same thing, the numbers are the same, and run with it in developing as an input into a product that we're developing. There will be a huge gap in what we have done. There'll be a huge serious mistake. So that's one other shortcoming I can think of. And then I think those two, for example. And like Kemi said, context for data is important. The context and balance. Data should be balanced. One thing I would really say here is a good product manager should data is a tool, right? And every product manager should realize that what will make you stand out is understanding all the tools that are available to you, and knowing the balance to which you would use not all of them, but even the tools as are when you should use them. So yes, I do not want to. This is one of the things I would not want to agree on. But yeah, this is one of the shortcomings of relying too heavily on data.
That's very insightful. So you need context. You also need to make sure that you're using the data right and the data you're using is correct. So yeah, that is pretty insightful. So let's move on to Mary. So Mary, once again, I admire the fact that you believe in empathy and instinct. So how do you validate your intuitive decisions with data after the fact? How do you make sure that your intuitive decision is in line with data after the fact, after you have already used it?
All right, so I think I jumped the gun with your previous question. Right, but anyway, I'll continue from there, right? I have my gut feeling. I try to create something to experiment. But for me to continue in that particular decision, I have to rely on data now. So it's a point where I feel this could work. And for me to be sure it is actually working and not like I'm trying to massage my ego, right? I need to now experiment it out and then observe the users. in the instance of a gaming product, I once worked on a gaming product, and we needed to make a decision on whether to allow all users, new users, to sign up first before they can even come on that particular product. Or we have another option whether to let them explore first, they can browse through the platform first. By the time they want to go further in, maybe they want to add to cart or things like that, or purchase, they need to sign up. So that was the decision we needed to make. And then I think what we later did was we had to go for, oh, why not? We needed to observe what the issue was, and then we concluded on having them browse first. So when they browsed, we observed that. So now we took a decision. Let us allow them to browse first. The next thing for us is to check: is that really helping us to convert them? Is there a drop-off point at that particular juncture? Do we have more higher conversion rates? So those are the questions we need to look at, and then to validate this gut feeling, actually, this particular assumption we have, because really it's an assumption, it's an hypothesis. What if we do this? Will it work? Will it achieve the purpose, that particular goal, like Adetola mentioned earlier on, that particular objective you have in mind? So if it's going to achieve it, why not? We are all good, because now we have the data to validate that. But if it doesn't work, then now you are now submissive to them and say, okay, no, I agree with you, it's not going to work. Then we can go on with the data-driven decision, another one. But it's always good to follow through your particular gut feeling. Like Kemi said earlier on, how will you just keep discovering the product's new features every now and then without necessarily trying until you get the right product? Then that means most times you'll be late to the market. So it's always good to try out things. However, for you to move further in it, to be sure if this thing would work, you need to bring in data. So I submitted that. Thank you.
Okay, that's very interesting. It seems Adetola is, data first, then, validate it with gut feelings and validate it with instinct and real life situations. Then you're like, gut feelings first, then validate it with data. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kemi is going to give us better insight into things. So the question I have for you, Kemi, is can you share a story where a combination of data and gut feeling led to a successful product pivot or launch?
Absolutely. So there was a time I worked on a feature that looked, how this thing, the way you look good on Instagram, and then your reality. So I once worked on a feature that looked great on paper, strong engagement numbers, decent retention, but something was just off about it, which was the user feedback. It was lukewarm, sort of. So, we dug deeper through interviews and we found a pattern, which was that people were literally using the feature, not because they loved it, but because they had no alternative. So that subtle discomfort sparked my instincts that we were missing the emotional connection. Like, I don't have a choice, I'm just going to, it's just like case of Nigeria. Let's just continue to manage the country. So, we imagined the feature with a sharper value proposition. It was simpler, more human, and it was more intuitive, So post-launch, the data caught up and engagement obviously, went through the roof. But more importantly was that satisfaction and referrals spiked. So obviously everybody's now telling somebody that knows somebody, you understand? So basically it was that combination of listening to the numbers and trusting the nuance that made the pivot successful. You are muted.
So yeah, that is thank you very much. That is certainly insightful. You combine what Mary have said and what Adetola has said, and then give us a very, a real life situation where you applied it and where it happened. That is very interesting. But we are going to have to go back to Adetola and hear from her more about data and how it plays in product management. So the question, we're almost done, but one of the questions that I have for Adetola is, in situations where data is scarce, say you're launching in a new market and there is not enough data in that market, how do you approach decision making? Do you push it off? Do you just go ahead with it? And how do you approach that kind of situation, Adetola?
Okay, thank you. Don't push it off. You don't push it off, people not, you won't have any product in the market. So yeah, that can be very challenging, especially when you are going into a new space like you mentioned. For those are like, for any data person, those are like the ones that you don't want to touch, but you have to do it. You have to roll up your sleeve and do it. So where data is scarce, honestly, is also a thing of your how you see things. Data is scarce means, so the way I look at it is, maybe we don't have the structured data that we need, right? The structured data that would have made our lives easier that we need. So what it means is that it's time to go and get the data. Like I said, data is information, and information you can get it from anywhere. So what it means, you have to roll your sleeves and just go back to the basics. And I think there was a project we were working on, a product we're working on, and yeah, that kind of happened. Everybody had to roll up their sleeves, or they had to do market research. What is happening in the market, what our competitors currently doing, and all of that. We also had to a lot of people on my team had a hard time doing this, but we had to talk directly to the customers to get we had to interview them, we had to get information from them. Okay, so what is it about? Because we had identified a problem statement. So what is this about? Is it about this? Ask them direct questions. Like Mary had mentioned, we're getting their feedback, both the ones they were saying and the ones that they were not even saying. We're noting it down, getting all that. Also, another way to get data, in addition to the market research and the customer feedback and maybe surveys, another way to get it is industry experts, right? We have a lot of industry experts like Kemi, like Mary. These are people that you can call on. And then so information is, data is both quantitative and qualitative. So in a scenario where you do not have the structured data, like I will call it, the quantitative data, the numbers, the figures, right? Now you can now rely on your qualitative data, and they're really always helpful. So yeah, that's the approach we'll take.
Okay, so if I'm to understand what you're saying, when you don't have the quantitative data, the numbers, you speak to people that are experts, you speak to people that will be end users, and you sort of create your own data from it,
Absolutely.
and then you use empathy, and that's very interesting. So let's move on to Mary. So Mary, have you ever faced pushback from stakeholders for choosing gut instinct over hard data? Because it's hard to convince stakeholders that, oh yeah, I just believe this is going to work. Like I 100% believe. So have you ever faced pushback from the stakeholders, and how did you handle that?
Okay, so yes. I don't know if there's any space you won't have a pushback like that. Like, I mean, it's my company now, then it's my money, and you just want to go ahead and test something that you think should work. Oh, God, I believe you are just joking actually. So I really need to see the data. So I've had instances like that. There were times we needed to carry out a particular idea. Thinking of one example actually right now, but really there are instances like, okay, for now there's a fintech product I'm currently working on, and the onboarding flow, right? We had particular first release, and the onboarding flow took several minutes to get completed, and you see what competitors are doing. Just it's like you are onboarded in in thinking of an high, and you really want to take that to the market. It won't work. So for us to carry out a particular, of course they can see the competitors. That is a really small one, but some features that we suggested, and they did not see the value in a particular feature. In my first response to the first question, I said, first, you just have to be humble and not just like you want to just drag with them. You don't have to argue your way out. You have to bring in something to support it. An instance is that particular LinkedIn trial I talked about earlier on. For the product team, let's assume it's my product team, right? And I really feel like this should work. And I know that I'm going to have a management meeting next month. And I feel this should work for our new product, this particular feature. We could just go ahead. I can talk to my engineers. Let's do something. Just put that particular button there. How many people click on it? That particular small data just gathered in less than 2 weeks will be used for my next management meeting. That would be what I will use. Oh, we don't have this currently, right? But what we observed is this particular thing, we just brought it out. It's not working, but we just placed it down. Then we observed we observed that the analytics brought that like 205 people clicked on that particular thing, thinking as though it is working in just like 2 weeks. That's a good thing. That tells you that users need it. So I need to just try out something, even though it's not working, but just to get in the hands of specific users so that I can get my feedbacks in time, then turn it in to the stakeholders. That would back up my own argument as well. And another thing would be A/B testing. This is what you want. This is the other thing I'm thinking we should do. Let's put in the hands of the users, because the truth is the user to be able to determine everything we are going to decide on. So I believe that would work. And that's the way I've been working around it as well. Thank you.
Okay, yes. So that's really interesting. So won't be hard-headed, try to figure out an actual way, a quantitative way to convince the stakeholders. Yes. That's certainly interesting too. So we'll be moving on to Kemi. I see you're already ready to answer the question. So my question is, how do you foster a culture on your product team that values both analytical rigor and creative intuition? How do you manage it so that it doesn't swing one way and then the other part is neglected?
Okay. I think it first starts with what we celebrate. Right, we have to make it a point to recognize both the sharp analysis and the bold and user-first bets. Say, for instance, you have to understand that you have to encourage your team members, no matter what. You have to encourage them to come with their hypothesis, not just dashboard. Don't just be pointing and clicking at the dashboard for me. You have to be able to ask some important questions like, why, what if, how much, not just how much. I'm just asking how much you're going to make from the thing. You're asking the why, the why and the what if. So in retros, because I think most everybody knows that we conduct retrospectives, right, and sprint reviews. You have to include things like, okay, what did the data show? What does your gut tell you? Those are important questions that you have to answer during those sessions. Then cross-functional collaboration is very essential. Like, it plays a big role in the sense that when you have people like data scientists on your team, you have designers, you have PMs, when everybody's working closely, there's like a natural blend of logic with creativity, because the designers are there, the PMs are there, the data scientists are there, everybody's able to put their head together and they're like, okay, even if this looks like this, okay, maybe we should infuse this or we should infuse that. So everybody's bringing their, it's like a huge brainstorming session. And if you have good listeners, you literally go on for hours and you wouldn't even realize that you guys have been talking and brainstorming for 3 hours trying to get to, something. And above all, we create like a psychological safety where people feel free to bring both numbers and the narratives into the room. Because that's really where real balance happens. You're not feeling like, oh, I can't speak, in this meeting. You're not feeling like no one is going to talk down my suggestion or anything like that. So those are things that when that psychological safety is, it also helps, because I'm feeling like, oh, I'm part of the team. Like I'm able to contribute. I'm able to, bring in my ideas. And no idea is stupid. You get so. I'm able to bring in this and that, and they will be recognized, So we put everything on the table, and that helps because you're feeling like, oh, okay, they listen to me. And that was that. You have no idea how much that helps one to keep. It keeps your team members to be on their toes. So to say, they're doing more research. They're bringing. We have this thing that we're working on. Let me see if I can quickly bring this on board, and maybe you get. So those are things that help.
Okay, so give an avenue and provide psychological safety for them to be able to express their opinion. Yeah, that's that. And for different personalities to thrive, and that's definitely that would do it. Honestly, because I believe when people have the room and the safety, or they believe that they're not going to be judged for whether being analytical or just going by their gut feeling, they will be willing to contribute more. And if they contribute more, you get better insight, and it helps the overall development of things and production and decision making. So we're going to move back to Adetola, and this is the last question, everyone. So if you have your question already, just keep it. I'm getting back to you. We're about to answer. I'll take questions from the audience. So Adetola, the last question for everyone, I still have to ask Mary and Kemi. So Adetola, the last question I have for you is, how do you balance quantitative data with qualitative insight, like customer interviews or anecdotal feedback?
Okay, how do I balance it? So honestly, I think it's just, knowing how to balance it, first of all, just, stems to you understanding the value in both. Okay, so when you know the value that each, brings, you know how to balance it. So for example, like the quantitative data, which is, the numbers, the trends, the evidences, the statistics, and all of that, right? I think what that does is to help you see what is happening and the magnitude to which it is happening, right? That's what I think quantitative data does. While qualitative data, like the feedback and what you mentioned, right, just helps to explain why what is happening. So even from this explanation, you can understand that we cannot do it. You can't have one without the other. Yes, it's not enough to just say, oh, this is what's happening. The next logical question anybody will ask is, any business person will ask is, oh, so why is it happening? So you have to have that answer, right? So you can't throw old one onto one and throw it. You have to be armed with both of them. And I'll give an example. So there was a product we worked on, and we just saw that the engagement on it wasn't working. It wasn't as much anymore. People just stopped engaging using that product. And obviously we got that from the quantitative data, and immediately we started making investigation, and we started asking our customers directly why they had stopped using and engaging. And from that interview, on that survey that we put out, because we did both one-on-ones and also surveys, right, we understood that the platform was not user friendly. So people they're tired of trying to use their common sense. It wasn't even common sense because it was not user friendly. They felt like it was too techy. So they were tired. They're like, what's a big. Because even before we designed that product, it featured high in the when we first went to go and get the data to understand, right? Because we had to prioritize. So it was very alarming to us when they stopped using that product that actually was one of the top rated requests. So when we engaged them further, we realized that it was because of this, right? So we had to go back and work on how that platform could be user friendly for them, right? And immediately that was worked on, it started getting traction. People started using it again, and obviously we saw that in the numbers, and we also be able to explain. So what am I trying to say is, by using the quantitative and the qualitative data, that's the numbers and the feedback, we're able to further refine this product, right? And which only just delighted our customers more, the people that needed to use it more, and even helped the company in helps their business really. So you can't do without. You have to have a healthy mix because each brings different things to the table. So yeah.
She said that qualitative and quantitative data and insights go hand in hand. You need to listen to what you're saying, figure out mix the qualitative data with the quantitative data, and I think that is pretty insightful. So let's move on to Mary. Mary, the question I have for you, and that's the last question I have for you, is what frameworks or mental models do you use to refine your intuition as a product manager?
So one thing I would say is asking a question, what if it fails? I think that's one thing I always want to ask, what if it fails? In a way, it helps us to, I mean, myself and the product team actually, it helps us to really, really criticize ourselves. And that's when you hear people saying some of their reservations, that's when they start saying, oh, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been this, it could have been that. And at the initial stage, they never mentioned that. Looked as though it was working fine. Take for instance, I had an marketing program last month, this April, and when we started, yes, we had a doubt, right? We're doing well. Then we put in our best, and then we pushed our product out. When we had our first dry run, we got harsh feedbacks that were not really it's not related to what we really wanted. Then by the time we now gathered together in the evening and said, oh, what really went wrong? Everybody started giving their opinions actually. Everybody started saying, oh, this, oh, that. And you're like, well, you never mentioned that from the initial state. So for me as a product manager, what I would say is the need to always ask the question, what if it fails? What would let us retrace it back? What could have led to the death of this particular feature? What could have led to this particular product? Another thing is just to be done. Why does my user want this particular feature? What is their motive for using this particular feature? So the more when you know that particular reason, there's a way you keep reinventing your product, your feature. It's possible you ship out an MVP and then you think to yourself, oh, this should be the way they would use it. But when you observe them over and over again, you realize that, oh, they aren't using it in a particular way you thought they would use it, but they are using it in a particular manner as well. Then you're like, okay, you never saw it that way. But if you're able to see that this is actually this is the reason why they're using your product, then you have to see to it that this is the job that needs to be done. Then you have to make everything possible in your products and in your feature to ensure that they are able to get that done. So I believe that those are the two ways I try to get it done. First is try to ask myself, what if it goes wrong? What could have led to the death of this particular feature of this product? Next thing is, what job needs to be done? What is the goal of my user, and how can I help them achieve that particular goal using my products? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, that is certainly insightful. We'll move on to Kemi right now. My last question for Kemi is: in your experience, does the balance between data and gut change as the product matures? And if it does, how does it change?
I mean, definitely that happens. So in the early stages, building a product is like sailing in a fog, where you rely more on instincts, fast feedback loops, and on user conversations. So you're trying to find direction and not just optimize it. But as the product matures, data becomes more central. Now you're scaling, you're fine-tuning, you're managing risk. So you need that analytical depth. But even in later stages, the institution still matters, because when it's time to rethink the roadmap, challenge assumptions, and you disrupt your own model, gut instincts becomes essential again. So yeah, definitely the balance shifts, but you never outgrow the need for both, really.
So yes, that's also pretty interesting. And because of time, we are going to move on to questions from the audience. We've all heard what Kemi has to say, what Mary has to say, what Adetola has to say. While data could be important, while believing or trusting your gut could be important, and how you can mix both of them together to achieve the perfect formula and make a product that truly lives and breathes with the users. So we've heard everything. So if we have any question, the panelists will be ready to take them. So Please raise up your hand if you have any question. Okay, somebody's hand is off, and that would be Sam is asking a question in the chat. Okay, so he's asking, can you think of a time when following the data could have led you to the wrong decision, and what helped you catch it in time? I believe this question goes to Adetola, but any one of our panelists can answer that question.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So like I'd given an example, like I mentioned earlier, right? Data is open to misinterpretation. So it's very important to understand the context, understand the context with which, the analysis is being done. So I'll give an example. We're reviewing the data for a product we had built, and what was there was underperforming and overperforming, right? That was the column header, right? Underperforming and overperforming. And for some reason my team had mistaking the underperformance for overperformance, and and were they had switched it. So obviously, with what you do with data is you review it, you analyze it, because what it's doing is it's telling a story, it's informing you of something. So once data informs you of something, the next business decision is to make some decisions and say, oh, if this is underperforming, we need to understand why it's underperforming and probably take it out, right? Or maybe try and see how we can do more work to optimize that feature. And if it's really not performing, we will just take it out. So like running with that mistake, that error, was the data correct? Yes, but it was the analysis that was interpretation that was wrong, right? We were at the verge of taking that feature out of that product, but somebody just took a second look and he's like, oh no, it's actually one of our top performing features, and we're like, oh wow, what happened? How did this happen? Luckily for us, we just that second look that second look and interpretation helped us understand and saved us from taking our bestseller feature off the market. So so like I said, the context of the data interpretation matters a lot. Data is a very straightforward, once you make a mistake, right, can make or mar, so yeah, it happens.
I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, you can ask for clarification. You have the floor. And okay, I believe I think thumbs up that answers this question. So I was going to ask if Kemi or Mary have something more to say about the topic, but since you are satisfied. Kemi, do you have something more to say about the topic?
So if I wanted to respond to that question, it would be that, so yes, there was a time that we were considering doubling down on a feature because the data showed high engagement. Of course, on paper, it looked like it was a clear win. The time spent was up, click-through rates were solid, usage was steady, but something definitely didn't sit right. So when we spoke to users, we realized they weren't actually enjoying the experience. They were just stuck on it. Like, it was clunky and navigating out wasn't intuitive. So the engagement was more frustration than actual value. So if we had followed the data blindly, we would have invested more in a bad experience. What really saved us was listening to user interviews and watching session replays, seeing the friction firsthand. So that shifted our focus from more usage to better experience. And it was a great reminder that not all good metrics mean good outcomes, and that pairing data with empathy gives like a more, complete picture, so to say.
Okay, and I think Mary also has something to say about the question, because she has been in the chat replying the question.
Yes, I
Mary?
was. Yeah, sorry, I can't turn on my camera again. So, absolutely, I was going to add to it that business knowledge also helps in this matter as well. When you know how the industry is, there's a way that when you even say particular data, you know something is wrong. You understand that this cannot happen. So, I've had instances where I've sent out some reports to some clients, and my line manager flagged it. Sense that she knows something was wrong, and then by the time we looked in depth into that particular data, the truth was actually clear. Something was wrong. So I believe the business knowledge also helps you also to detect something easily as well.
Okay, so that is pretty insightful. I hope that answers your question, Sam. Does anyone else have a question? If there's no other question, I believe that this brings us to the end of our panel. Thank you so much, Adetola, Mary, and Kemi, for sharing your insights. But before we go, there's a quick heads up that I want to give. If you're looking to level up your product management skills, you want to learn more about product management, Kiolbi Labs offers free courses like Introduction to Product Management. You know that teaches you everything you need to know to get started in product management. They have another course called Product Discovery, and there is a third free course. All of these courses are free, by the way, so you can take advantage of all of these courses, and you can check them out at qblabs.com. I will put the link in the chat, and please don't forget to follow QB Labs because they brought us this panel session on Instagram and LinkedIn for more resources and updates. So let me just drop the website in chat right now. So yeah, so 3 free courses, that's something. So yeah, in light of everything, I'd like to say thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Kemi. Thank you, Adetola, once again. It's lovely to have you here. And I would like to catch up with you guys again in another session because this was very insightful, very enlightening. And I just enjoy your vibe. So yes, so bye everyone, and once
you.
again,